Well, yes.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I was
Last semester, last year.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So different.
It's a good role for that.
I feel like
Sure.
I probably got a little. Oh my God. You do.
What's up?
Oh, really? I'm very Carol.
Yeah, man. Like it all over the place as usual.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually busy all the time.
Yeah, oh my God. It's like how you doing?
Good, good.
No,
It's pretty bad. Oh, I've been reading no one's emailed me already.
Good morning.
Good morning. No. I just have to make sure that yeah.
So she come to every set of interviews in prison or
Why are you unsure? You're on the committee.
I'm just telling you, I don't really control.
yeah. You gotta control a bunch of different you should be able to use what you got. Why do you complain you don't have enough? Yes, you know,
So I have a little bit of
nobody knows it's the budget. No, he knows it's the budget. Really? So what happened?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were, oh, so it sounds like you don't get the New York Times either. You're paid for it.
All right. Hello again, friends. Welcome once again to the Student Senate. It's so good to be back with you all. We'll begin as always with a prayer in the name of the Father, and the Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Father, moving right along to roll call. The roll call question today is: who would play you in a movie about your life? Here, and I didn't think of an answer. I would hope ideally someone fun like Henry Winkler.
Madeline Smith,
Here, difficult, but I really like Kira Knightley.
Daniel Silverhorn,
Here, and probably call
Faith Wood,
Here,
Nolan Lyon,
Here, Adamson.
Miranda Colon, Colin Ray,
Here, I'm also going to call that.
Christian Cole,
Here, and I have to say the new Blues Clues host, Joshua Del Cruz.
Patrick Galligan,
Here, Miles Tower, maybe.
Annika Barron, McLean Farrell,
Here, I guess just because of the comparisons like John McClain. Real quick, is Annika's proxy?
oh yes,
Hi.
Maddie Means,
Here, I think it's Anne Hathaway got beat here.
Emma Eckstein,
here, I don't know, Emma Watson for the same name.
Isabel Karen,
Here, and just because it was fun, Danny DeVito.
Cooper Scholl,
Here.
Benjamin Earhart,
The president, the younger, skinnier version of Harrison Ford.
Abraham Figueroa,
His proxy's here. I'll probably be Ronnie Chang, because he's Asian.
Madeline Kosaduki,
Here, I'd say Anya's gonna go.
Mary Griffin,
Here, maybe we Leighton Meester.
Ella McComas, Christian Yoder,
Here, I think I'd say Ryan Reynolds.
Brian Kearns,
Here, I would say John B.
Luke Blazer,
Probably young Ophir and probably young Mark Hamill.
Lizzie Martin,
Here, probably
Veronica Slevin,
here and Florence Pugh.
Elizabeth Gonzalez,
Here and Jessica.
Michael Jacob,
His proxy's here, and Matt Damon.
Zachary Cortez, Will Kennedy,
Here and Dylan O'Brien.
John Bailey,
Here, I'll take Ryan Gosling.
Ava Downey,
Here, if Steve Dogg and Martha Stewart had a kid.
Mary DeVoe,
Here, I'm not sure.
James Burnett,
His proxy's here. I'll say Ryan Reynolds.
Paul Stoller,
It would be such a terrible movie, but I'd have a Logan Paul play me.
and Jake Lowry,
I think it was Finn Wolfhard.
Timothy Gallagher,
Here, I'll say John Mulaney.
Maddie Soupy,
Here, unfortunately, Miranda Cosgrove.
Thomas Davis,
Here, I really like Tom Hardy.
Alan Jomo,
This is so great. Scarlett Johansson. She was playing a role. That's just me.
Madison Neiman,
Yeah, I'd probably go with the beefier Zendaya.
Elise Basin, Minu Selvin,
Here, Mindy Calling.
Kate McLaughlin, Caroline Cameron, Mabry Will,
Here, and I don't know his name, but the guy who plays Mr. Psychoid in Victorious.
David Holmes,
Here, and Sean Haas.
Look at that.
Daniel Lau,
Here, I want to cartoon characters count, like SpongeBob or something.
Mo Doyle,
Here, and I would say Isla Fisher, classic redhead actress. Thank you. One human being in this room knows who that is.
What's the movie? They do it, Wedding Crashers.
Yes, this is her Wedding Crashers. Now I see you, right? Or now you see me. Yep. Now I see you as well.
Awesome. So moving right along, are there any changes to the minutes from last meeting? Hearing none, if there are no objections, the minutes are approved. moving into executive announcements. I don't know if you want to say this before I consider it, but as part of your election to the student senate, you're required to do take part in Green Dot training. I'm sure Madison will be in touch about seeing who has and has not already been trained and verifying that with the Green Dot office. I just included the link of the Green Dot website. Feel free to contact them to set up a Green Dot training for your dorm, and you can report that as your Green Dot training. If you're not trained by January 1st, there's, I guess, Ethics Commission could get involved, but just make sure that you are trained through Green Dot. In addition, we'll be having, I think, mindful training within the month. So that's like the microaggressions training through MSPS. So any questions on Green Dot or MSPS? Great. We had a meeting today with the UHS working group. A lot of their staff and our leads in health and well-being get together every month to talk through big trends. What I wanted to plug for you all is the confidential UHS feedback email address. So I'm putting that in the agenda right now. It's uhsfeedback@nd.edu. Any message that is sent to that email address is sent to their top 3 leaders. So Dr. Duncan, Sydney Schwartz, and I think Claire Gadsberry. So feel free to report if anything could be made better at UHS, the services they provide. All emails are sort of discussed and considered by their office's leadership. So yeah, any questions initially on that feedback form? Like I said, it's confidential. They would know your name under the current system, but they wouldn't be able to share that name with anyone else. Anyway, right now I know COVID is a big concern, COVID testing specifically. It was brought up at the executive committee meeting the other day. At our meeting, Dr. Junkins reiterated that COVID cases are pretty low given last year's massive spike at the beginning of the year, but that other illnesses like mono and hand-foot-mouth disease are coming back in vogue and with a fierceness. So be careful. Remember to wash your hands and abide by university masking policy to cut down on the more respiratory diseases that are going around, like RSA, common cold. I know I'm battling a cold right now. So yeah. Any other questions on the UHS side of things? Anything that you all would like me to bring to them? Fantastic. This morning, Alan and I met with Doug Marsh, the university architect and vice president of facilities design and operation. We discussed a lot, but specifically, we focused on accessibility in dorms. And we were given sort of an overview that during the leadership of Aaron Hoffman Harding, a master plan for residential life was drafted to make every dorm on campus accessible to our disabled community by 2028. So for those of us right now that are dealing with the inaccessibility of dorms, I think of our older dorms, especially in North Pod, that's very frustrating. If there's anything that we can immediately fix, so if there's one place that you think, oh, there should really be a ramp here, we can see about getting that put in very quickly over a summer. But I just wanted to reiterate that progress is moving, even if it seems ungodly slow. I'm very excited to see the renovations in Soren College once it's up and running again, which will be made accessible. In addition, we talked about how rainfall and snow leads to a lot of accessibility concerns on sidewalks. Doug was very available to, like, if we see a big lake, I'm thinking like outside Steds has a big lake that forms every now and then. If we send him a picture of like that to tell him where it is, he's said he was open to going through and trying to level things out, get better training in there, and do that on a spot check basis. So let me know. I can get that to him. Beyond that, I wanted to put a resolution template together for you all. The only resolutions that have been passed were the emeritus resolutions in May. So feel free to write resolutions that is linked on the agenda. Feel free to make a copy of that and use that to guide your resolution writing. We're also thinking about making a resolution writing workshop. Oh, great. If a resolution writing workshop were to be made available, who would be interested in such a thing? Quick show of hands. Great. So like a dozen of you. We can try to get a space together and get that information out to you all.
Would it be during these meetings?
No, it would probably be outside of these meetings to talk through like details of what specific issues you might be working through, strategize, do things like that. Great. Any questions on that? Fantastic. Our last announcement, and perhaps our most exciting, is that we're joined tonight by Luke Blazek, our new senator for Pangbourne Hall. So welcome, Luke. Fantastic. So moving right along,
Wait,
unless,
I have an announcement. Is that cool?
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Just keep everybody updated. One of the biggest things that one of our two other departments are within Department of Student Department, Catherine Carl, and Department of Academic Affairs, Sarah Stenson, is sort of affordability and accessibility, especially for first generation low-income students across the university. So we were lucky enough to sit in a meeting with Andrew Whittington and Ellie Brenner, the assistant provost. That might be the wrong title, so don't quote me on that. But she works for the provost office closely. And so 3 things we've talked about are Majors Night and figuring out how we can help out with Majors Night and making sure that students, especially first years and potentially even sophomores, because sort of missed out on that sort of programming last year, can be brought in. And on one hand, they can perhaps, if they are solid on what they're wanting to major in, they can confirm that through Majors Night and be solidified in that decision. But if they're unsure, to be also affirmed in that. That is a journey of discovery, and you don't have to have it all figured out as a first year, as a sophomore. And if you're even me, as a senior. And so helping out with Majors Night as student government, anyone who's interested in that would be more than happy to put you into that sort of work to allow students to sort of get that opportunity to explore what they want to do. Beyond that, we have begun initial scoping on a variety of initiatives and programs, whether that be a Center for Learning, a pre-matriculation program, and a multicultural competency training program across the university. And so there's a lot of work being done on that end and looking to make sort of the Notre Dame experience accessible for all students and not particularly just students who can afford it. But so there's work going on, and we're lucky enough to be pulled in by the Office of the Provost on some of these initiatives. But thank you so much, Maddie.
Yeah, anytime. I would say least, but I don't think fantastic. So I think that's all for executive announcements. Unless there's any questions for Alan, we can move right along to Minu's presentation on financial affairs.
Fantastic. Okay, yeah. Disclaimer, just because I might act like a crackhead. I accidentally took drowsy medication, so I'm a little off and slow. So it's gonna be a fun day. All right. So I'm just here. I figured it'd be important because I feel like we have a lot of new faces here. And Maddie and I thought this presentation would be helpful so that you guys can have a better insight into what how we put on events here at Notre Dame, right? And how does class council put on events? How does executive cabinet? And I want to tell you more about Financial Management Board and the Office of Student Union Treasurer, just out of curiosity. Has anybody heard of Financial Management Board? Okay, so yeah, all right. Not enough people, because it's the most important thing, in my opinion. So I'll go through what I do, what Clara does, then we'll go into the sources of funding, and then we'll talk about the Financial Management Board, our accomplishments in the past year, the resources we provide, and then I'll leave some room for you guys to roast us. You know, we always wanted a Comedy Central roast, so open to feedback, any questions you guys have. So I'm the student union's sugar mama. Actually, it's also you guys, but I'll go into that later. But for now, that's what I am. My background in student government has been there, but so the office of the student union treasurer is comprised of me and 2 assistant student union treasurers. So Claire, and then formerly Luke, but we're looking for a new one. Congratulations. And then Claire. Oh,
Hi. Hi everyone. My name is Claire Evelyn Sisson. I got into student government in my end of freshman year as was Mendy treasurer, and I've been treasurer ever since. I'm a current junior, and I'm happy to be the assistant student union treasurer this year.
Okay, so what the heck do we actually do? So there's a beautiful document called the Notre Dame Constitution. It's a great read with a nice glass of Costco's Mango Moscato for $6.99. For those of you who are 21 and above. For those of you who are not, that's sad. Mango Nectar from Costco for $18.99 also works. But essentially, what you could deduce from that is our responsibility is to maintain the financial health of all the student union organizations and to oversee allocations. And we'll go into later how allocation works or what that is. And some of you have already had an experience with it. And I do apologize for those of you, a lot of this might seem redundant, but hey, can't help to go through it again. So, I was going to quiz you guys, but I already put the answers there. All right, that's fine. So when I said I'm your sugar mama, that's a lie because you guys you're all your own sugar mama. So you guys pay student activity fees. Does anybody know how much they are? No, you already know the answer. Somebody else, take a wild guess.
95.
Yeah, good job. That's good. If I had candy, I'd give it to you. All right, $95. Okay, so student activity fees. The next thing is the student endowment and the shirt. The student endowment kind of works in tandem with the shirt, and I'll go into that in depth. So Christian already said it. Thank you. That was very good. So $95 per semester per student. Yeah. So we're gonna. I would just ask you to keep in mind where FOB gets their money from. So this is one of them, student activity fees. The next thing is the shirt. So this document, again, this is on page, whatever that is, 48, 40 something. It's in your agenda. You guys could look at it later. But that tells you specifically how proceeds from the shirt, right? So you have revenues, sales, what people will buy the shirt from you at a price, then take out your costs, so whatever marketing, whatever, how to make the shirt, and then what you're left with is your profit. So from that, there are specific rules on how to allocate the profits. So the first thing is you take 50% of the profits minus 125,000. So 125,000 is given to FMB. So we have the student activity fee so far and 125,000. 50% of that is going to be invested in the student union endowment. And I'll go into later, what is an endowment? How does it work? Why does it make money? Everything. And then, so you have 50% minus 125,000. Then the remaining 50% minus 100,000, that's for the shirt charity fund, which Claire will go into later. And then 150,000 for the student experience fund. So that funds, so for example, if there's a student who goes to the Office of Student Enrichment asking for assistance, so whether that be, I need a new coat, I need a laptop, football tickets, that's coming out of that, okay? And then minus the fixed cost, the rest is going to the student enrichment endowment. So you have the student union endowment and the student enrichment endowment. Also, if you guys have questions throughout, you guys just throw it up or yell. So what the heck is the endowment? So fun little history lesson for you. In April 2007, the student body president and the vice president at the time, Mo, do you know who the SAO director at the time was in 2007? Okay. Well, anyway, they were noticing that. Was it?
Probably Peggy DeCosta.
Okay, awesome. So they noticed that student activity fees were increasing incrementally, and it got to that point where it's about to hit the $100 mark. And so they looked at a long look at it, and they realized, that's not fair. So what can we do to, make student experiences affordable? So these geniuses, if you will, created the student union endowment. So what is an endowment? Basically, the definition online will say it's a legal entity. Think of it as a business. So my mother gives me $500 to start with to do whatever I'm going to do. The goal is that I grow my business, right? I'm supposed to have more than the $500 she initially gave me, and I'm going to use the profits from that to expand the business. That's what the endowment is, right? It's going to fund the student union endowment, raises capital to fund student union operations. And so what makes up the endowment? So that's a stomach for all you peanut people. I don't know, Jacob, yeah. That was clever, right? Good, thank you. So financial assets, so like the I already gave the answer. Dang, this medication is giving, all right. The investment office, which is run by Mike Donovan, I believe, he runs the endowment. Well, he oversees a team of people that runs the endowment, the student union endowment, the student enrichment endowment. And they get to decide how they will be using the principal, the initial investment, and they will decide how that's going to be invested. So I'll do a fun exercise. So it'll make more sense for our non-finance people. Fun fact, I used to be an architecture major, so trust me, I've tried to dumb down finance as much as I can. So let's pick on somebody. Yeah, Alan. Oh, fair. Okay, Alan, I'm student union treasurer. You're Mike Donovan from the investment office. He has $10, okay? So Alan, don't keep it. Alan is going to take the money that we initially invested, right? And his job is to make that money grow. So Maddie, okay, it has a business and whatnot. I don't know what they actually invested. That's always hush hush, but I'm just, well, no, I don't want to say it like that. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm just trying to show you how the money grows and like how we actually get money from this for allocation. Okay, so you want to start a business, you're going to get a loan from Alan. Okay, why the heck would Alan give her money? Like he can have $10 now instead of like $10 a year. $10 a year. So what is Maddie going to pay Alan so that he's willing to take on that risk? What is it called?
Interest?
Yes. Perfect. So in a year, Maddie has to give back Alan $10 plus the interest, okay? Now, I'm student union treasurer. No. So with the endowment, you never remove the initial investment. So you give us the interest, okay? So we do all our programming and whatnot, and then we have some money left over. So this is what's going to feed the endowment. You have student union surpluses, so any amounts that are not spent by the end of like the term. This was new to me, didn't know that, but they also invest your student activity fees, which is great. Oh, fees, not fees. And then, as I mentioned earlier, profits from the shirt. So now I'm coming back with Alan with more money than the first time to invest in. So now you have the $10 from the first time I gave, from the first time I gave you, and then $3. Now your job is to do the same thing to Maddie, and now Maddie's going to pay more interest on it because it's a higher amount. And so that keeps going. And so that started in 2007, and that's where we are today. So what we started with in 2007 was $650,000. I don't know the number today. Mo might be able to, she doesn't have to, but it's larger than 650,000 today. And we started that with the shirt project, the shirt royalty fund, and the carry forward account. The carry forward account is essentially, you have more money for me or, oh, okay. The carry forward account is basically, this is in the Constitution, you can read up on it too if you're interested. It's basically a savings account for the student union for a rainy day, for anything that's unplanned, unbudgeted. So if there are, so for example, student union organizations that run a deficit, this savings account would pay off that, or Irish Gardens, right? If they run a deficit, this savings account would help them cover that debt. Clubs as well, right? Is there clubs? No, that's okay. Yeah. So hopefully that was helpful so you can understand. So we basically just like skim off the top of what is earned, and that's what's given to allocate. So to recap, we have the student activity fees, the shirt, and the student union endowment. So now, what the heck do we do with this money? What do I do with this money that we've been given to allocate to you guys? So there's something called the Financial Management Board, which is comprised of, so if you see your title here, raise your hand. You can raise your hand, Timmy. I guess class councils raise your hand. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, you guys count. Yeah, there's more people here. Matthew's also, so William. So these are the people that make up the Financial Management Board. They're essentially the main student union organizations. And you can see that they represent different groups of students. So you have HPC. Oh, there you go. You have the dorms, CCC clubs, subs, that's the Student Union Board, and then the class councils, and then Judicial Council and Off-Campus Council. So we sit on a board, and I can only best explain what allocation is and what we do in terms of like what happens throughout the year. So I'll start out February, Grace nominates me, and then Senate confirms my nomination and whatnot. So that happens in March. And the student union organizations I've just had on the board, they present their preliminary budgets to me about what they anticipate to spend for the next fiscal year. And then in April, we have this thing called the spring allocation, because at this meeting, we're going to decide what we're going to allocate during the spring semester. And basically, we sat in this room in April last semester. So the people who sit on the board, who deliberate, vote, whatnot, debate, fight, get spicy, it's the outgoing members. And the people who present are the incoming members. And they're being the people who are presenting have somebody who's representing the organization who's going to vote and debate. And everybody's going to present, and then at the end, look at what they've requested. It's exciting. Then we look at what they requested and what we have to allocate, and we debate about that. Then once we come down to, once we've made a decision, I'm in charge of submitting it to Alan and Matt. So this is what they mean that the Senate votes on the budget. There's a committee called the Committee on the Budget. And that's comprised of like Alan, Maddie, Timmy, Jacob, Paul, Avery. I said you, right, Maddie? No, I did. Okay. Well, and there's, Thomas, David.
Jake, maybe.
Did I say Jake?
No.
I said Jacob.
Can be on its way.
Yeah, well, listen, no, and there's more I think I'm missing, but essentially we sit on this committee and they vote on this budget that was submitted to them by the student union treasurer. So if it is approved, we're good for the fiscal year, but the last year was not approved. So then FMB had to reconvene and had to look at the allocation, and they have to look at the reason why it was sent back. So one example would be, they rejected the budget because junior class council was not allocated fairly relative to sophomore class council and senior class council. So in that, so then we'd have to look at that and see, okay, so let's see if we can remedy that. But you can't just send it back and be like, I don't like the numbers. That's not sufficient. So that happens. Then during the summer, we get an inflow of shared charity applications. So we'll have some emergency summer sessions so that we don't pile up and we can review them and vote on them. And then in September, that's when we kind of get into the flow thing. We're still reviewing shared charity fund applications. And there's also applications for resources that FMB provides, so like additional funding for clubs, dorms, which Claire and I will elaborate on. We're looking at that for September, October, November. And then in December, there's an opportunity for student union organizations to come back and ask for more money at something called winter reallocation. That happens in the winter. So in January, and it's reallocation, mini allocation, and they can request for more funding. So if they looked at the way they spent it during the fall semester and they feel, okay, I don't think I'll have enough to continue to do programming in the spring semester. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to the winter reallocation meeting and request more money so that I can have some money until the end of my term. So that's what that is. So just to reiterate, spring allocation, winter reallocation, it's like our Met Gala and then TV awards. So that's in April. Sorry, that's in April and January. And now just to go more into like the resources we provide, we have the CCC Collaboration Fund. As you can probably interpret from the name, this is when clubs and dorms can apply for additional funding. So here's a good example. Say I'm the director of faith and service and executive cabinet, and I'm working with Jewish Club. But I do not have like the means in my budget to co-sponsor their event, like financially. Maybe I can contribute in other ways, but just not give as much money. Jewish Club can apply to this fund on behalf of executive cabinet and request for more funding. But this is active funding. So you can't ask for money after the event has happened. It has to happen before. And then this is, I put stars on this one because this one is, we do this one more frequently than the others. And also there's rules about it in the Constitution. The five, as the others too, the $5,000 fund. So anytime there's going to be a club or student organization that's going to spend above $5,000, it has to come through FMB to be reviewed and voted upon. So often, like we'll get club, right? Thomas is looking at me that I'm wrong. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Okay. So that's that. And then the remaining two, Claire, do you want to go into it?
Yeah, sure. So the next one is tech fund requests. So the way that one works is that each group in the student union, each student union organization gets a certain amount of tech credits every year, and they also get rotations as to which clubs can present, which clubs get like priority for presenting which years. And each of those credits is worth $1,000. Various, as I said, various student union organizations will get different amounts depending on their size and whatnot. But it's meant for improving technology and upgrading and like upscaling in that regard. As for the COVID-19 fund, that's a more recent fund, as you could assume by the name. It was established after we got sent home. What was that, 2 years ago about? And we essentially made it so that instead of rolling over a bunch of budgets back into the endowment, we created its own fund where we were able to distribute that to organizations that need financial help due to COVID-19. So generally things that are related to fostering community with the difficulty of COVID-19.
It could also be used for, so for example, this is a big question mark again. So say that executive, I don't know why I keep thinking that, let's do class council. Senior class council budgeted for the Gatsby dance and COVID happened. And now when they're trying to plan the Gatsby dance, SA is telling them, oh no, like you're gonna need to spend on sanitizer, masks and whatnot. So there's now additional costs associated with the event because they're trying to like host it during the pandemic. So they can come to us to request funding from this fund because of these unanticipated costs. So that's another way it could be used. And then lastly, the heart of FMB.
Yeah, the shirt charity fund. So this is really what FMB does a lot of. On FMB, I mean, so I'm sure that you all, many of you might know this, the origin of how the shirt came to be. It was to kind of, the whole legacy of the shirt is to create, is to create a way to help students who need, who have financial need for something, for medical expenses and are struggling to pay for them for something extraordinary and all. So as part of FMB, we do the shirt charity fund, and we keep that legacy alive with the shirt. So so every year we get money, we get a bunch of applications from people that have had medical expenses while being a student here, and we look to see if there's financial need in their applications, as well as the fact that it's a medically extraordinary procedure. So if those two criteria are met, then we will agree to pay for their medical bills with using the money that we got from the charity. And that's pretty much the heart of what FMB does. We do that. We've been doing that pretty much every meeting that we've had, except for our allocation meetings, and it's a really fulfilling part of what FMB does. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so the charity fund is that to help students with medical expenses or other expenses as well?
I believe medical, yeah, medical.
So So in order to be eligible to receive funding from the Charity Fund, if you go to the website, there's 3 conditions. You must have incurred the expenses while you've been a student at Notre Dame. Second, it needs to be medically extraordinary. So that's what the board will debate about. And then to demonstrate financial need. So those are the 3 conditions. But anybody's welcome to apply, and then it's up to the board. All right, so this is our contact information. We really appreciate you listening to us rant about finance and whatnot. Hopefully, I don't know, hopefully you guys know a little more about FMB and the Office of the Student Union Treasurer. I'll be like, if you have a question or, well, let's go. Thank you. I appreciate that. If you guys have questions, you can ask them now, or you can like email me, email us. That's my number. Or if you just want to roast us. We'll take it through. Yes. Well, yeah. You had a question?
Well, we can clap first.
Oh, okay.
I'm just curious, how did you accidentally consume drowsiness medication?
I didn't know. I didn't read the box. I just saw clarity.
You see, you just drank it.
Yeah.
You just, like,
Friends.
No.
sorry.
Another time. Any other questions on the operation of FMB? Don't relate to medication.
Yeah, so some of my residents have been very curious as to how exactly we spend the money.
Yeah.
So is there any way for them to figure out exactly what the numbers are in terms of how the money is spent?
When you're saying numbers are you like referring to how much is given to each organization as spring allocation? Or are you referring to like a credit card statement, like you can see?
I'm guessing kind of like the allocation.
Allocation. Yeah, so I'm working with David on this, and I'm also like trying to update the website. So it's kind of like with Senate, whenever you guys have a resolution that's passed or whatnot, like you post it on the website. And even with the minutes, they're available. I'm working on doing something like that. The reason why they're just not so readily available is, like they're mentioned, we talk about charity applications, right, in those meetings, and we have minutes. We don't want to be publicly posting like confidential medical information about students. So if you want those numbers, you would email me. That's what it says in the Constitution, and I could turn them over to you, but it would be redacted.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Could you just go into executive session then? You don't want to state what the charity applications are. And sort of from there, that's public portion of the meeting.
Well, so a lot of our, so a lot of times, a lot of times, sorry.
Oh, no, I missed the question. I'm so sorry. What was the question again?
Yes, sir. I mean, procedurally, couldn't you just say go into an executive session where, I mean, you don't really record what is being said at that executive portion, that's a closed meeting. But you would just do that instead, and then consider the other parts of, FMB as a public portion.
A lot of times, our FMB meetings comprise almost solely of charity applications. So that's a great suggestion, but I do think that that a lot of times it would. I mean, I think that maybe it's definitely something to look into. But like our allocation minutes, for example, I don't believe there's anything confidential. So like those are the ones that you seem to be more interested in. Those happen only twice a year versus most of our meetings are charity focused. So most of our meetings wouldn't make sense to just edit and disclose a few lines of dialogue.
And then Christian, just to follow up. So like right now in the Constitution, the process is that you email me to request them and I turn them over. So I'm working with David to fix that language. Yeah.
And in the bylaws, it's true that meetings are open unless closed. So if Christian were to email you now and ask for just the minutes from allocation, you could send those to him, right?
Yeah. And then also, Christian, if you wanted to sit in on any of those meetings, you could tell me too. So like, for example, if you wanted to sit in on anytime we're reviewing like COVID-19 fund application, $5,000 request, you could, you would just email me if you're interested. And I'll let you know if like we're reviewing any charity applications, and then at that point, that meeting is closed. So that's the only thing.
Other questions?
Those were great questions. I'm sorry, I'm just very slow.
It's okay.
Hearing no other questions?
I
Thank you so
guess,
much.
no, thank you. You guys are awesome. Hopefully this was helpful.
Great, so moving right along in our agenda, sort of in new business now. First is SO 21-2210, in order to amend the Constitution of the Undergraduate Student Body to revise Articles 3, 5, 9, 16. I don't know, David or Thomas, if you'd like to speak on this before I refer to committee.
Well, we've, following the precedent from the electoral code amendments, certainly be happy to take questions or your comments that you senators might have, so that we know what the COMCOM members should focus on in their deliberations to address any potential objections.
And to guide those questions, maybe you could give the senators a brief rundown of what exactly your order is doing.
For sure. So the order is meant to remedy disparities in off-campus representation on two bodies. One is sub and one is senate. The sub role is more of a chance for off-campus to be part of dialogues and programming. That's less of a representative role as it is a communicative role. That off-campus and on-campus students know when each other's events are happening. And you can plan around each other to not overlap or duplicate events and waste resources that way. The Senate role is to fulfill the mission of this body to be the voice of the student body and to represent its various residential constituencies in an even manner to proportionalize the representation of off-campus senators. Certainly Thomas and Kate and anybody else wants to talk about it.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on the proportion of like making off-campus senators proportional?
Yeah, so the statistics here indicate that off-campus senator and off-campus president are the two voting members in the Senate compared to 34 residents, all senators in the 34. So that percentage is about 5 to 6%, significantly less than the percentage of students who live off campus. So their voice is sort of shrunk, and I'll sort of turn it over to Thomas on the statistics for that.
In terms of statistics, I think the dynamics of numbers on campus. Class of 28, first and after. So previous years, we had more than just one class living off campus. Excuse me. But now that number, so the record that we have in statistics is probably larger than also last year we had focus. So we're looking at, trying to take in mind, looking at the senior class specifically, just the senior class, specifically over the last decade or two, and seeing what the percentage of students in this class going forward based on and taking that.
Currently, what we have in there, that 15% number corresponds to 4 off-campus senators. But as we get roll call data, when should we expect?
Roll call is doing their verification validation. So hopefully over the next week, we'll be able to get that data for current numbers. Trying to see if we can backtrack that out.
So depending on the number of off-campus residents, do you plan on keeping more representatives and the changes? Or are we gonna have to?
So the 4 now is a guess. This is what the statistics say. The assumption is essentially that the proportion of seniors who currently live off campus who choose to do that will be steady. If that assumption doesn't hold up, then it would take an amendment to fix it.
And your question gets at the heart of the issue. That is currently off campus, which is proportionally it's way out of skew. So with the assumption that data is the best kind of tweak that we have to fix the current issue. But going forward, I'm not one that likes to change the constitution. It should not be something that we hope that analytics will number that. I certainly don't want it to change, but for going forward, or a more appropriate number going forward, will put us in a better situation having to readjust this question.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up. How many years of senior classes are you guys using, like past years of senior classes are you guys using to determine like the average?
We have the last decade so far, and we expect the coming year to be particularly representative of the post-COVID.
Any other questions?
I have a question more about the election. So when I was reading the amendment, it looks like, if I was interpreting it correctly, people that vote for the Austin, so the people that are currently living off campus, and people who have their documentation for off campus, they apply to both groups instead of just.
I think the best way to describe it is you're not entirely sure what the actual constituency will be. You're pretty certain everyone, by the time they're actually has at least if they're playing on the campus, that's not necessarily sure. I think off campus is a unique role too, because you're moving off campus or you're finishing your year as the transition of representative happens. So it's not just for the year ahead. It's easier to track for the norms because you at that time you're already enrolled for the norm registered next year. So that lecture is much more specific. But in terms of you don't know necessarily, but you know you'll still be on campus throughout May, and they will be the representative. If that makes sense.
Operationally, I mean, former vice president elections, operationally, does the registrar keep information on who is going to move off campus the following year to use to build your listserv for that election?
Yes, so for last year, for example, we sent an email to 2 listservs, one of spring 21 off campus and one fall 21, so they were able to get that in time.
Great.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we apply for housing a little bit before, like in that same kind of time in the spring, you apply for housing. So if you don't apply for on-campus housing. It's the same.
And another question, because your statistics have focused so much on the senior class in particular, have you talked to Timmy at all about his role in representing off-campus seniors, the senior class council representing that constituency as well?
Oh, we haven't particularly on the issue. I think that's I mean, we always, senior class has their, we have the more specific off-campus issues.
You live off campus?
I do live on campus. I'm not sure what I
Just
should be
like
saying.
personal, no, I just. Any other questions? So if there are no other questions, I'll refer this to Committee on Constitution for further review. Maybe to come back and be passed, but we shall see. Thank you so much, Thomas, David, and Kate on your work on that one. Moving right along to SO 21-22-11, in order continuing the existence of the financial response account. Is it me writing this one? If you would just want to give us a brief rundown on what this is.
Yeah, okay. So basically, just to reiterate, I'm not making any changes at all. It's just more like an extension. So in 2020, when we had those surpluses from the student organization, that was put into an account. So Senate Order 2021, it's like linked there if you look at it, created the COVID-19 financial response account. Then $10,000 of it was set aside for the COVID-19 fund, which, you know, off-campus council was the first to use. And then we still have the remainder, after the $10,000 was taken out, we have the remainder, right? So the memo stipulates that we're going to evaluate, like the use of that fund, after like winter reallocation from last semester, so January 2021. And we feel that just extending it, just pushing it back to a longer date, to a date in the future is the appropriate response, because as you noticed, like from the past football game, the parking lots were still relatively empty, stadium was still empty, and, you know, obviously they purchased a set number, like a fixed number of shirts to sell this year, right? And it was lower than prior years. And so there's a possibility that the shirt may sell out and then you lose out on sales, right? Or it may not sell. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and the pandemic is still a relevant concern. So with that being said, we just want to be cautious, and we still want to keep that money just set aside. We do nothing to it. So this order is just asking us, like, we're just asking to extend it and to reevaluate the next winter reallocation. Yeah. Okay.
Are there any questions on this? Yeah, Paul.
So maybe this was already part of like the order, the previous order, but it says that the Senate will establish fiscal policies for the student union and supervise the proper implementation of the policies. I was under the impression that, and maybe this just comes from like my ignorance, not knowing how FMB allocation works, specifically what this sort of has in the past. I was under the impression that FMB is responsible for setting the precedent. How are we and how is this grouping involved in directly setting that precedent, or is it more general, like FMB, you go ahead and you do your thing, there are general sort of restrictions or parameters that you work within? Because I know like the precedent's already been set for this, this $10,000 pot. How will that continue and how are we a part of it?
Great. So you're talking about the COVID-19 fund?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, Thomas was the first application, and so you have a representative in FMB.
Yeah.
And that's Matt.
Yeah.
Matt has a copy of the application, and so like.
I was there for that.
Oh, you were? I'm
I
sorry.
approved it.
Yeah. So you know what it takes, what factors went into it being a successful application. And then what was your other question though? Like
what's our job in regards to this? Like I just saw like
Oh,
the
with, like,
Senate
what I'm
will establish.
requesting?
So what are we doing?
because I don't have a vote. You guys are voting on this. I'm just asking that. Oh,
Yeah, so the Constitution, like, part of the Senate's duties or powers is that you guys determine like the fiscal organization of the student union. So like you guys kind of oversee FMB, so to speak. So like FMB would give like a presentation or kind of give you information, even though they're the ones conducting it.
Sure.
And then you kind of can make a vote on the information that they present to you. Does that make sense?
So sorry, last question.
No.
Is the FMB vote to approve an approval to bring to the Senate and then we vote on it? Because I was assuming that it was just already voted upon by the FMB. Maybe I'm completely misunderstanding.
I see what you're saying. So what I'm proposing right now.
Yes.
Okay. We have conversations about it in FMB. We don't vote on it. You guys have to vote on it. That's the difference.
The allocation of this. I'm sorry, I'm totally confused.
No,
I can
yeah,
ask you
but-
after, so it doesn't like.
Are you talking about the COVID financial response account or the $10,000? The $10,000 is what we review. That's for programming.
Yeah.
We have to review that.
Yeah.
Because you have to apply to the fund. You have to tell us why you're using the money. So that we review and vote on, and that doesn't get to Senate.
Okay.
But what
That
we
was-
decide to use with this financial response account, you guys vote on.
Okay,
I'm
that
sure that,
answers it.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, totally fine. Is that clear? I'm so sorry.
Any other questions? Thomas?
I have a question on the necessity of, I don't think it's necessary.
In the FMB memo, it said we would reevaluate it after winter reallocation. So I interpreted that as the deadline. And so that's why I'm just asking to push it back. So it specifies the year. So 2021 winter reallocation. So I'm just asking.
But the Senate order, I just think you don't have any obligations.
Okay.
That's my And the thing yeah.
Yeah, point to my lawyer.
So this
That's my
is,
lawyer.
this is what, okay, so the Senate, passed an order establishing that fund. It later passed an order in which it set parameters for the $10,000. And what it also did is it linked to this memo. Now, if I were to interpret this as like, is it binding or not? This memo is not binding upon you, the Senate. You don't have to adhere to that memo because it's essentially put in there as a declarative whereas statement, if you will, rather than an operative clause. So you don't have to. This is more of an FMB coming back and saying, this is what we're up to. We'd like your approval about how we want to go about analyzing this. So Thomas is right in the sense that you're not bound by a deadline, but your power to set fiscal policy can bind the FMB, and they're essentially asking you to set fiscal policy in a way that gives them more shape.
Yeah, and my concern here is that in this order, it enumerates the end of this year as when the fund ends. So then that makes us have to readdress it at the end of the year, whereas there is no current deadline. So if we get
So the recommendation is not to go through what I'm proposing?
But I think what you're proposing is the exact same thing, right?
Yeah, essentially, like yeah, but the wording of it is what you're saying is what's throwing it off, right?
I think it adds
I think what he's saying is this binds, we go ahead and
Yeah.
pass this, this binds you to a deadline, whereas previously what we passed so far in the last year and a half, it doesn't bind you to anything. So if we go ahead and vote on this, you've already set a deadline in your own mind.
Yeah.
Or there's nothing holding you to that. We vote yes on this, now there's something actually holding you to that. So I think that's what he means by.
I'm trying to help.
No, I know. So I just don't want to be, so I guess like reject the order, but I can't really say that,
You
so.
can also make a motion to withdraw.
Oh, motion to withdraw.
I don't know that.
So if,
On the other hand, I'm not telling you to do that.
Yeah.
as another response, I think it might be helpful to give FMB a deadline to analyze this by, but I don't know what you think about that as treasurers. I definitely defer as to whether you want a deadline or not.
The great thing about new business is that we have a whole new another week to think about it. So.
Yeah. I will come back to both of you and talk to you about that. Those are great points. Thank you. My favorite lawyer is from New York.
I won't refer this to committee only because this is the constituent body. So yeah, we'll see that next week on general orders unless of course it's withdrawn before then. Great. Any other questions on that order right now? Great. The only other thing in new business is that hopefully we will have the nomination for the assistant student union treasurer next week. Again, as Luke joined us in the Senate, he left his former position as assistant student union treasurer. So looking forward to getting FMB rounded out. Great. So that's all I have. Any announcements? Yes.
Power for water this week, like $1 or $2 if you have any on South Quad. It's all the money goes towards Engineers Without Borders. So it's a good cause. It's cheap and it's fun. All there.
Alan?
Yeah, two things. So we all got the email today saying that University Enterprises is holding a job fair. So if you want a job at the dining hall, just totally look into it. Luigi asked us to advertise that. Then the next thing is that Ellie Brenner is looking for tutors. So I'm going to read out the subjects that she puts tutors in. I don't know, tutoring sounds cool. I know a lot of y'all are smart, so you'd be able to do great with that. The 4 subjects she needs tutors at 5 are Chem, Calc, Stats, Econ, and Finite. And so if you are competent in any of those difficult subjects and you're looking for a job, there's jobs available. Just reach out to me and I'll connect you with Ellie Brenner. So tutoring, fun, smart. Yeah.
Neil's having an event on Friday, 40 yards for a cause. It's on South Quad, I think 1 1 to 3. All, what? Noon to 3, I bet. And yeah, all proceeds are going to South Bend City for the homeless. We'd love for you to come out.
Any other announcements? Yes, Dave.
Yeah, first year class council campaign is underway. You'll probably see posters in your residence halls. Please don't give any indications of support for one candidate or another.
Neither good luck nor bad luck to the
The Department of Sustainability is working on their Fearless March campaign right now, and we're needing more manpower. Myself and Alexander met with Brother Pete on Monday, and we're meeting with Campus Center tomorrow. If any of you are proud vegetarians or have anything to add to the campaign, or know somebody who does, again, it's literally just the two of us right now, so help is wanted and needed.
Sub has Acoustic Cafe tomorrow, 9 to 11, and the Coca-Cola like brand ambassador is giving away AHA sparkling water at it. If you want to try their new flavors, very exciting. And then Saturday, we're helping SAO out with a pre-game, not a pre-game. It's a pre-dash game event before the game event called like the Rebound. So it's like Bounce Back Bash Part 2. They're gonna have big like inflatable bouncy things, and we'll also bring the trampolines and toilet sticks. So hope to see you guys there. It's from 11 to 2.
Dane.
Two things. One, piggybacking off of Kate, Acoustic Cafe on the 30th. Alan, Kate and I will be doing a performance, and you all should come. And then secondly, I'm mostly working with HPC, but we'll also need your help for all of this. The Department of University Policy is going to be doing town halls in each of the residence halls, specifically surrounding gender relations, but talking about a lot of university policies and different ways that we want to work on them and really bridge the gender divide that we have on this campus. And so we'll be reaching out to each of you over the next couple of weeks to talk about how we can work with you and hopefully how you can help us and you can help run these events in each of the residence halls. So be on the lookout for emails about that in the future.
Any other announcements? Hearing none, is there a motion? Yes, please. All those in favor?
You're in the center.
All opposed? All abstained? Have a good night.
No, Mary, please tell me you take minutes for that.
I did that.
Yes.